Yo, what's going on with y'all? It's your boy NeoXO, and before we get into the video, make sure to subscribe if you're not already. I pretty much talk about anything anime and manga related, so with that being said, let's hop right into the video. So as the title suggests, today I'm going to be talking about Kaiju number 8. Now, this is a manga that's relatively new, and at the time of the recording of this video, it only has 11 chapters. But these 11 chapters are enough for me to decide that this is pretty good. I've been hearing a lot of people actually saying that this is going to be the next big manga, and after reading it, I can say that I see where they're coming from. So right off the bat, that seems like some bold statements to make about a manga. So I'll do the due diligence of describing why I think that these statements have been made. One of the things that stood out to me reading this was the fact that the main protagonist was actually 32 years old. Now, if you're anything like me and you read a lot of shonen manga, you will know that a lot of the time, the main protagonist of a shonen manga tends to be younger, probably teenage years, maybe early 20s, but we don't really get to see a lot of main characters in their 30s. And I think that this is definitely a really good breakaway from the norm, because, you know, sometimes it's just a good thing to break away from the norm and it's good to set itself apart. I think that they can explore some other themes that might not be able to be explored from a typical shonen manga due to age being a limiting factor. For example, the struggles of a 32-year-old are definitely going to be different than the struggles of a 16-year-old. For example, a 32-year-old has to have a job while a 16-year-old does not. But specifically speaking on how it relates to this manga in particular, the main character Kafka actually does not really want to be doing the job that he has at the beginning of the manga. But luckily for us, pretty early on in the story, he decides that it's time for him to pursue his dreams. Now, I bring this up because this point really hit home for me, because if you guys know me, you've probably heard me talk about how, you know, stuff like Asta following his dream to become Wizard King, Naruto following his dream to be Hokage, they really resonate with me. And this one also resonates with me on a different level, because the fact that he's older, I feel like the story is trying to tell you that it's never too late to essentially go out and chase your dreams. In Kafka's case, his dream would be to join the defense force. Now, the defense force is pretty much the group of people tasked with the assignment of pretty much eliminating all threats that are presented to Japan. Now, for the majority of these threats, it appears that they are actually kaiju. Now, kaiju are essentially these monsters, to put it in simple terms. I was going to describe it in more details, but the best way I could describe it quite simply is monsters. Kaiju are monsters, and these monsters appear sometimes straight up out of nowhere, and it's up to the defense force to pretty much eliminate them before they cause casualties and damage to buildings. These monsters can be very huge or they can be very tiny. Now, they have different designations for each of the kaiju. Some of them are obviously going to be a lot stronger than others, and they have different designations. Some of them are basically in a class of their own, basically like a league of their own, and other ones are kind of like not as big of a threat, and they kind of just linger around some of the stronger kaiju. One of the things that happens pretty early in the manga, and by pretty early I mean chapter 1, Kafka actually gains the ability to transform into a kaiju form. So essentially, he gains the abilities of these kaiju. Now, I'm not going to go into detail on how he obtained this form. It happens pretty early in chapter 1, like I said. So if you really want to check it out, read chapter 1 and you're going to know exactly how he was able to gain this form. The reason I don't want to talk about it too much is because I don't really want to spoil this part, even though it's pretty early on. Something cool I wanted to say also in this video is the fact that Yuki Tabata actually recommended this manga. So if you're a fan of Black Clover or any of Yuki Tabata's work and you wanted to, you know what some of his recommendations are, he actually recommends Kaiju number 8. And that's just something I really wanted to mention, because I know I have a lot of Black Clover fans on the channel. As for the actual presentation of this manga, I'd say the art looks pretty nice. The character designs are really clean, I'm not gonna lie, straight up fire at times. And I think that the line art is pretty clean also. There's not really a lot of rough around the edges type of looks. That's not to say it's perfect or anything like that. It's just to say that they pretty much clean up a lot of the line work. And I'm just pointing that out for the people who care a lot about the art. I know art doesn't make the whole thing, but it definitely adds to the experience. But art for me doesn't really make or break a series necessarily, because there are some very good manga out there, but the story's so good that the artwork for those are kind of lacking, and you don't really get mad at it because the story is just so good. Now, for this one in particular, Kaiju number 8, I think the story and the artwork go well together, especially when Kafka actually transforms into a kaiju. Now, Kafka's kaiju form is absolutely insane looking. He turns into this really cool kaiju, really clean design, and when you look at it, it just looks absolutely powerful. It's radiating powerful energy, and it's just absolutely cool to look at. It's one of those things where if this ever gets an anime adaptation, people are definitely going to be hyping up these transformations. It does seem that he actually turns into this kaiju at will, but you know how sometimes they have to go through a lot of training, and I'm pretty sure that he trained a lot, but in the manga it didn't really flesh out that part. It kind of had like a couple months where after he gained the ability, he kind of disappeared and he came back and he was able to transform into his human form and kaiju form at will. Now, you might be thinking, okay, so his transformation is going to be every single battle, but there's a catch. The catch is, since he's a kaiju, he has to be very wary of the fact that he can't just transform anywhere that he wants to, because if someone from the defense force sees him in his kaiju form, they might pretty much kill him on sight, because at the end of the day, he is a kaiju, so they might want to pretty much eliminate the threat. Because as we see later on in the manga, well, not even later on, because as I've said, we're still pretty early in the manga. Only 11 chapters have been released at the time of this recording, so a better way to describe it is, as you progress further, you see that he's actually very powerful in that form, and it seems like he might be able to defeat a majority of the kaiju on his own, but that's kind of a limiting factor because he can't transform. You know, he can have this powerful form, but if he can't use it because he runs the risk of getting killed, then in the end it ends up balancing it all out at least a little bit more. Because let's just be 100% honest, this is a shonen, so if he ever needed to transform into his kaiju form whenever people were looking, but he needed to do that to save someone's life or something like that, he's more than likely going to go ahead and transform anyways. But speaking on the potential of this series, I actually see it possibly being really big in the future, depending on how it's obviously handled. It's obviously very early on, so I feel like if this series is actually handled very well and it goes in the right direction, it definitely can be a hit series. Now, I'm saying this because sometimes things like this get adapted into anime and then it just skyrockets in popularity. This has the potential to do that. As long as they keep on going at this sort of quality, then it should be pretty good to look out for. And if you haven't read it, I say go read it. I mean, it's only 11 chapters in, so at the end of the day, you're gonna be reading this pretty early on and pretty much building up the fan base, because you know, at 11 chapters the fan base is still definitely building up. So yeah, that's pretty much my initial thoughts on this series, and I might actually do more videos on it in the future. So like I said earlier in the video, make sure to subscribe if you like this type of content. Also drop a like too, just to help out the channel a little bit if you guys want to do that. But with that being said, that's pretty much everything I have to say regarding Kaiju number 8 at this time. Hopefully you guys did enjoy the video. Go ahead and leave a comment to let me know your thoughts on this series. So yeah, that's pretty much everything I had to say. So yeah, it's been your boy Neo XO, and I'm out.